Hi, students. Mrs. Ivester here, and I wanted to share with you all today this wonderful book called The Ocean Calls. And the reason I chose this book as we study the ocean this week in library for Earth Month is because I was fascinated by the story that this book is about. This is written by Tina Cho, who was from South Korea, and she learned about this community on a small island off of South Korea, and South Korea is located near Japan, that there's a community of women divers between the ages of 50 and 80 years old who dive into the ocean without any sort of breathing gear and gather food for their families and their communities. They grab food such as sea urchins, octopus, seaweed, sea cucumbers, and then use these resources that the ocean provides them to feed their families. And this tradition, this practice has been going on for hundreds of years. And when the author heard about this, she went to this community, she met with some of these divers, watched them dive, talked to them, interviewed them, and then in response wrote this beautiful children's book to be able to share and tell their story. So I hope that you enjoy the book, The Ocean Calls, a Hanau Mermaid Story. And the pictures are all done by Jess Snow, and I find them to be absolutely beautiful and also help tell the story in a wonderful way. Daeyeon and Grandma stretched and watched the sun's first rays kiss the sea. "The ocean is calling me today," said Grandma. "I must dive." "I want to be a Hanau like you," said Daeyeon. You're a treasure hunting mermaid." But then Daeyeon remembered the time that she jumped off the big rock last summer while visiting Grandma. Water had filled her ears and nose, burned her eyes, and stung her skin. And worse, the deep ocean where Grandma swam was full of sharks and other scary creatures. Daeyeon shivered. "You can't grow into a mermaid if you don't finish your abalone porridge," said Grandma. Daeyeon held the shimmering blue abalone shell and rubbed her fingers over its holes. Grandma cleaned and boiled the shellfish from her catch to sell, but this porridge she had saved just for Daeyeon. Grandma washed the dishes. She and Daeyeon practiced holding their breath. 1, 2, 3, 14, 15, 16. Daeyeon let out the air and escaped in a long sigh. Grandma squeezed Daeyeon's hand. "Don't worry. I learned to be a Hanau from my mother, and now I will teach you." After breakfast, Grandma put on sunscreen, a diving suit, flippers, a lead belt, and a mask. Daeyeon put on sunscreen, a suit, flippers, goggles, and a snorkel. Grandma carried her tools to pluck treasures from the sea. Daeyeon carried hers and plucked treasures from the shore. Together they sang a Hanau song. "I eat wind instead of rice, take the waves as my home." On the sand, the Hanau tromped, clumsily in their flippers. But as soon as they dove, splash, they swam like mermaids. Daeyeon sat back, feeling like a beached urchin. She wiggled her toes in the tide pool. Grandma popped out of the water, whistling as she let out her held-in breath. Again and again, the Hanau dove and came back up for air. The sea breeze carried the sound of their whistling. Daeyeon climbed into her lookout rock. A shell gleamed under the water. She jumped in to grab it. As the water circled her waist, she shuddered and gasped. That's what Grandma's voice echoed in her head. She said not to be afraid. The ocean is your home. Know the sea and find its gifts. Daeyeon looked around at the other girls giggling in the shallow water. She took a deep breath of hope and unclenched her fists. The waves rushed around her ears, but she relaxed when she felt the soft touch of the sea anemone at her fingertips. Maybe I could swim deeper. After collecting 10 sea gifts, Daeyeon heard singing as the orange globes of the Hanau nets floated closer like a giant setting sun. Grandma and the others swam back. Daeyeon rolled round nets up the shore. I found pretty pebbles and shells, said Dayan. Beautiful, said Grandma. Now, are you ready to dive with me? Dayan set her bucket on a flat rock and looked at the sea. She gulped. What if I can't breathe? What if a shark comes? What if I can't escape? Grandma sang, Can't you hear what the waves are saying? They're calling us to come home. Dayan looked into Grandma's sweet eyes, swallowed her fear, and nodded. Side by side they walked. When Dayan could no longer feel the ocean bottom, she locked hands with Grandma. Take a deep breath, calm your mind, and then we'll dive. Down, down, Dayan and Grandma dove. But Dayan swam right back up. Dayan whistled as she let out her breath. It's okay, said Grandma. Relax. Explore. Down, down, down they went. This time Dayan held her breath longer. Seaweed swayed with the current. Colorful fish darted by. She pointed to a garden of sparkling treasures. Suddenly Grandma pulled her up, up, up. They both whistled. Dolphins, Grandma pointed. Dolphins bring hungry sharks. Dayan's heart beat faster. She kicked with all her might. What if they couldn't escape? Her arms felt like lead weights in Grandma's belt. She swam to a nearby boat. A hanau waited to lift her to safety, and that's when Dayan remembered her wish. Dayan shivered in Grandma's warm embrace. We worked together to keep each other safe. You were brave, Dayan. You'll be a fine hanau someday. But Grandma, I didn't catch anything. Oh, but you did find treasure. Grandma opened her hand and gave Dayan a sparkling turban shell. Dayan's thumb followed the curve of the shell's spiral. She smiled. For the first time, she felt at home in the sea, like a mermaid, like a true hanau.